What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel where today we have your favorite waiver wire pickups from week 5. Now, these are guys that you should be prioritizing your targeting in your waiver wires this week. These are guys that are just about 50% or under owned in most leagues, at least in Sleeper, which I use. So we're going to go through them individually and talk about why I love each one of them. So without further ado, let's get started. All right, now first up we have Wandale Robinson, and I know what a lot of people are thinking. This is a guy that probably isn't on your waiver wire in quite a few of your leagues, and you're thinking probably, how is he? How is he a waiver wire pickup? Well, on Sleeper, he is only 47% rostered, which makes him a very viable pickup. He was tied for the third most targets in week 4 with 14. He caught 11 of those 14 targets. He's been averaging 13.2 fantasy points per game on 8 plus targets in 3 of 4 games, 11 plus points in 3 of 4 games, and he ranks 14th in target rate. That's just under 28%. He's 5th in the NFL in total targets and 5th in the NFL in receptions, and has 5 red zone targets so far. That is 3rd for wide receiver. He is the guy on the other side of Malik Nabers. Malik Nabers obviously having a very phenomenal season thus far and proving to be a very good wide receiver one for your team. Now, Malik Nabers did suffer a concussion this past week, but we're not sure if he's actually going to play or not. That being said, if anything were to happen to Malik Nabers, then you're going to want to see Wandale Robinson hit your lineup. I even have him as a flex play, a very solid flex play going forward. I think that this is a guy that you can insert into your lineup immediately and see production because of how much Daniel Jones uses him. The Giants are not a very good football team. They don't run the ball. They have no target competition in their tight ends. So realistically, I have Malik Nabers and Wandale Robinson with occasionally Darius Slayton, and he's going to produce. I would go ahead pick him up if he is available. All right, now up next we have Dontavian Wicks. Now this is a guy that's definitely going to be on your waiver wire more likely than not. He's only 20% rostered in sleeper leagues, and he is an absolute must pick up. Last week in week 4, he was tied for the 5th most targets. Christian Watson just got hurt. So there is going to be a spot for Dontavian Wicks to step up and step in right into the spot that everybody expected Christian Watson, who hasn't been playing well by any means, he's just going to fill that role. He led the team last week in targets with 13, with a 24% target share. He has achieved in his entire career where he has ran over 70% of routes. He has gone over 20 fantasy points in every single game. That being said, last week he did just that. 81% route participation, 58 snaps, 48 routes run. He only had one less snap than Reed, ran the same amount of routes, and had 5 more targets. And Reed is considered to be the wide receiver one. He also had 200 air yards, which led the team with a team high of 35% share. He did have some drops, but Love trusted him enough to continue to give him the ball, and he delivered. He made the most of his targets. He made the most of every opportunity that he really got for the most part. This is a guy that I really do think is definitely going to take over for Dobbs and should be the guy on opposite side of Jaden Reed when you expect the Packers receivers to produce. I know that there have been some question marks on who's going to be fed in this offense. Along with this, Josh Jacobs hasn't really produced too much since he's been on the Green Bay Packers. It's not been something that the Packers should feel too comfortable in. I don't expect them to run the ball too much, and because of that, Jordan Love is going to have to make some plays. And Dontavian Wicks is going to be right there in the mix. I don't expect him to give up his spot to Christian Watson when he returns. Watson has a high ankle sprain, It's a pretty serious injury, even if it's quote unquote minor. I don't expect him to give it up. I think that he's going to potentially be a league winner. He's one of my favorite pickups of this week, potentially my favorite pickup. And, this could be a guy that helps you win your fantasy league this year if everything goes kind of how it's looking right now. All right, and next up we have the only running back that is on this list. It's obviously going to be Kareem Hunt, only 40% rostered in sleeper leagues. He operated as the workhorse back last week in his opportunities with the Chiefs because Carson Steele did fumble in the first quarter and he got put in the doghouse. That was as simple as that. One fumble, you're out. That's kind of what Andy Reid does. He rides with the hot hand, and if you fumble, you're definitely not the hot hand. So, Kareem Hunt going back to Kansas City and filling that role that they need with Isaiah Pacheco out for the next still 4 to 6 weeks minimum. You're going to see an influx of opportunity here for Kareem Hunt. Along with this, Rashee Rice just got hurt, and you're going to see a lot more ground game. I expect. I don't expect Patrick Mahomes to all of a sudden be throwing the ball more with Rashee Rice out, which is his kind of security blanket at the wide receiver position. There's not a guy that can really fill that role the same way. Juju Smith-Schuster had that role prior. He's not going to fill that the same way. Kelce is obviously Kelce. He should see some a tilt up in production. However, I do think that this offense could go around Kareem Hunt. The opportunities will be there for Kareem Hunt to succeed, and I expect that with his opportunities, he's going to produce similar. I wouldn't say to the same extent that Isaiah Pacheco is, but I would say that he's going to be able to produce to a certain level. I can expect 12 points out of him a week, and that's just fine for me. All right, up next we have Tucker Kraft, the only tight end on this list, and he is shockingly only 10% rostered in all of sleeper leagues. Now, that is because a lot of people thought that Luke Musgrave was going to be the tight end one here, but things have kind of switched up. This past week, Tucker Kraft, 9 targets, had 6 catches for 53 yards and a touchdown, producing 17.3 fantasy points. He's the definitive tight end one. He's played in 80% of snaps in 3 out of 4 games this season. He's a great athlete. He has proven that he can break the tackles and gain yards after the catch. And, this past week, he played in more snaps and ran more routes in week 4 than Jaden Reed and Dontavian Wicks, which means that he is a part of this passing game. He is going to be a part of this passing game. I think, we can expect to see a couple of catches for some decent yardage from Tucker Kraft. He is a guy that, tight ends have been struggling. We haven't seen too many great fantasy producing tight ends up until this point. Everybody's just kind of had like 1 or 2 good weeks, and then they just kind of fall off for the next 2 weeks. It's been really wishy-washy. I think that he definitely warrants at least being put on your bench as a potential, streamer for the tight end position. I'm not going to tell you to insert him immediately, but he should be on your bench. He only had 1 less target than both Reed and Dobbs last week, who each had 8. I think that Jordan Love will continue to build chemistry with him, and his opportunities should only go up. And last but not least, we have Xavier Legette, 38% rostered in sleeper leagues. He had a pretty monster week last week. 10 targets, 25% target share with Deontay Johnson on the opposite side. He caught 6 balls for 66 yards and a touchdown for 19.6 fantasy points. It would have been a little bit bigger if he would have caught some passes that he did end up dropping. But, it's trending very positively for him. He played on more snaps than Deontay Johnson. He ran the same amount of routes as Deontay Johnson and added 2 carries on the ground. It means that he is establishing himself with a firm role in this offense, and especially with Adam Thielen, who's currently on IR, being on IR, you're going to see that uptick in production from a guy like Xavier Legette. Andy Dalton also being at quarterback now has exponentially increased what he's going to be able to do. You wouldn't be able to see that same type of production from Bryce Young, but Andy Dalton being able to pass the ball is clearly making the Panthers offense much better and making fantasy owners of all Carolina Panthers much happier. I do think he deserves to be on a roster spot, especially if Deontay Johnson, who was kind of dealing with an injury, continues to be dealing with an injury or goes down at any point. Then he obviously becomes this wide receiver 1, and he's going to get so many targets. He's going to get bombarded with targets. I expect him to be very viable, potentially a streaming option, depending on how Carolina's offense continues to grow and if Thielen comes back sooner rather than later. That being said, all in on Xavier Legette. Go ahead, grab him off your waiver wire, and stash him on your bench, hoping he continues to produce. And that's going to be it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys like this video, guys want to see more videos like it, make sure you subscribe if you're new here, like the video, comment down, ask for fantasy advice. I love giving it, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.